My name is Kelsey Hitchingham, and I'm the Operations Manager with Austin Mutual Aid. Today, I'm going to walk you through the City of Austin's Food Justice Mini Grant that is currently available. You can go to austintexas.gov and search Food Justice Mini Grants, or we've also supplied a link directly to the application. It is due Friday, July 22nd at midnight or 11:59 p.m. So if you go to the austintexas.gov page, you can see that there are two applications. One is in English and one is in Spanish. Today we're going to go through the English-speaking application. So this takes you to the actual application. You'll see that there's some information about the actual grant that they're doing. What they're aiming to do is encourage underrepresented voices to be leaders of change and to support local action to reduce inequalities. The program welcomes ideas and projects from applicants that want to build food justice in Austin, but also prioritizes proposals led by Black, Hispanic, Indigenous peoples, low-income individuals, and other communities negatively impacted by the food system. The program is seeking applicants from organizations demonstrating an intersectional and equity lens and leading transformative change within the communities they represent. The maximum award amount for any entity or organization is $3,000. So if you have several people in your organization apply, the cap that your organization can get is $3,000. In order to be eligible for the grant, they are accepting these applications from nonprofits, schools, for-profit businesses, homeowner associations, faith-based groups, grassroots initiatives, and more, which I believe also includes individuals. To receive funding, you're not required to have a 501c3 registered nonprofit, but anybody or their fiscal sponsor must register as a vendor with the City of Austin before you can actually receive the funding. And registering as a vendor with the City of Austin is something that Austin Mutual Aid can help you with. Applicants must be based in the Austin-Travis County area. Funds cannot be used for political activity, meaning lobbying, campaigning, or trying to influence any local legislation or any legislation. And there are no insurance requirements for this grant. So like we said earlier, applications are due Friday, July 22nd, and there are three parts to the grant application, which I'm going to walk you through now. First part, making sure that your organization is located in Austin or the Travis County area. Second part is the contact information. So this is where you will include the name of your organization, where you're located or your mailing address, your website, email, name of contact person for the grant application, their role, their contact phone number, what language you would prefer to use when you're being communicated with the City of Austin, and also which Austin City Council district you primarily work in. So if you do all of them, click all of them. If there's only a couple, click just the ones that are specific to you. If you don't know what city council district that you're working in, then you can go to this website, austintexas.gov/GIS/council district map. And we'll move on to the actual application process. The first question is, has your organization received City of Austin funding in the last 5 years? And you'll see here that there are points associated with all of the questions in the actual proposal part. All of these questions with their points add up to a rubric that whoever is evaluating this grant application will use to establish where your grant falls numerically against all of the other applicants. And so obviously the ones with the highest number of points are the ones who are going to receive funding. So again, the first question, have you received funding in the last 5 years? If you have, of course, it's not necessarily a ding against you, although if you have not, you will receive 5 points, and that's because the City of Austin is obviously prioritizing organizations who are new. They want to bring in essentially fresh blood to make sure that they are distributing their funds across the city to people who haven't, always been up for the grant awards, that kind of thing. So they want to make sure that they're diversifying the organizations that they are awarding grants to. Second question is just selecting your organization type, whether you have a 501c3 status or you don't, whether you're just a community association, if you're a faith-based organization or church, if you're a business, a for-profit farm. Here's where if you're an individual who is interested in doing this, then I would recommend just putting in your own individual name or LLC or whatever you might have. So after you answer this question, you're going to go into the meat of what it is that you're trying to do to explain it to the city. First question is your organizational mission and history. This is 20 points. This is the most number of points that any of these questions have, so we want to be sure that we are answering this in a thorough but succinct manner. The city writes that the most successful applicants will be held by those most impacted by inequities in the food system with a demonstrable history or potential to execute their goals. So the questions that they're looking to answer are: is your organization led by people of color? Do the people impacted by the issue your organization addresses serve in decision-making roles? Please explain and include a brief description of your organization's history, include why it was founded, its current work, and any major accomplishments. So this is your introduction to the city. This is where you're going to let them know who you are, why you do what you do, how long you've been doing it, how you've been successful, what has been your impact, and really just let them know in 1 to 3 paragraphs a very thorough but, again, succinct explanation of your organization. Moving on to project proposal, this is where you're going to outline your project and also the timeline. There are 2 questions under this heading, and they're both 5 points, which doesn't mean that they are necessarily less impactful than the original 20-point question, but you definitely want to let them know exactly how you plan on using this money. So at the very beginning of the questionnaire, we determined that this $3,000 can go to a standalone project, or it can be supplemental to something that you're already doing. So if it's a standalone project, then here you're going to write exactly what you're going to do specifically with the $3,000. In this question, the City of Austin writes that the most successful applicants will have a lived understanding of the issue that they are addressing and the factors that impact it, such as race, gender, class, age, and sexual orientation. Applicants should outline a clear project proposal with goals and funding that align strongly to the issues being addressed. So here's where you're going to outline exactly what it is that you're doing. It's not just we're going to feed people or we are going to create a farm stand. We want to know exactly how you're doing. Who in the organization is going to be responsible for this? Who is doing oversight? Who are you serving? What exact issue is it addressing? Whether it is, a food drought in your neighborhood where there isn't access to fresh fruits and vegetables, whether you're providing hot meals, that kind of thing. So this is where you're going to give them a very specific but succinct outline of what you're going to be doing. And then question 2, estimated timeline. So you can't just say, we're going to feed people for the next 6 months. We want to know how many people per week, per month, per day, if that's something that you're going to be doing. We also want to know, is there ramp up time? Is there ramp down time? Be very specific here in your timeline. Is this a new or existing program? Answer that question. Moving on to equity, this is a 20-point question. The most successful applicants will center equity within all of the work they do, both internally and externally, and their project will address inequality and oppression within the food system. How does your work address inequality and oppression both within the food system and your organization? So we're going to both look internally and externally. So if you're addressing food imbalance as far as like a food desert goes, and you're talking about creating a farm stand in a place that doesn't necessarily have fresh fruit or vegetables within a particular mile radius, or if there is it's too expensive to go to a restaurant and you're trying to give much a cheaper option for food options, then we're going to talk about that here. Additionally, we also want to talk about equity within your organization. So here's where, in addition to the history of your organization, I would recommend that you highlight how within your organization you are promoting equity. So we want to talk about equity at the board level, at the leadership level, at the who is actually is there a difference between the demographics of the people who are actually doing the work versus the people who are deciding what work needs to be done, that kind of thing. So we want to look both externally and internally to ensure that equity is a value that runs through the entire organization. The next question refers to partnership and collaboration. The most successful applicants will have meaningful relationships with individuals and other organizations in the community they represent or serve. So here's where we're going to outline who your partners are, how do you collaborate with them, and how do you achieve your goals collectively? How do you plan to grow and foster community support for your project? If you don't have partners, then I encourage you to be honest about that, right? We shouldn't fabricate things in grant applications just to get money. We need to let them know exactly what's going on. And if your organization is successful without partners, let them know that. If you do have partners, here's where you're going to outline exactly who they are, how their mission aligns with yours, how you work with them, whether you do, let's say, social media highlighting of the work that they do, whether you actually go in partnerships on grants or funding, or you've got, two teams who are working on different outcomes still work with the same population, that kind of thing. So you really want to outline specifically, again, within 1 to 3 brief paragraphs, how you collaborate with anybody else in the community and how that partnership helps support your project. The next question is about project evaluation and how you plan on collecting data and metrics for this particular project. Successful applicants will provide specific metrics on how the project will be evaluated, example, number of meals served, and clearly define the success of this project. The most successful applicants will seek to collect data, metrics, and demographic information, such as race and ethnicity, gender, or age if applicable. Example, number of meals served by race and ethnicity, gender, age, etc. So what metrics will you use to evaluate this project, and how will you collect that data? The City of Austin relies heavily on demographic reporting with their funding. And so we want to make sure that when we talk about the evaluation metrics here, we are putting in something that is realistic for us to measure and also helpful for us to figure out the impact of our program. We want to make sure that we are collecting data that actually means something, that these numbers can tell a story, and that they're also easily recorded so that we are streamlining our process of collecting all this data, right? And I understand that with particular populations who are facing food insecurity, it can feel a little bit dicey to try to ask them personal demographic questions, especially if they feel untrustworthy, or if they feel as though this is information that might come back to haunt them, or for whatever reason they would like to keep their information private. It's up to you and your organization and the relationships that you have with your clients to determine what kind of data you would like to collect. And I will say that from Austin Mutual Aid can help you figure out the best methods of data collection. Feel free to email me, kelsey@austinmutualaid.org, and I can walk you through a couple of options to help you collect data and also to measure it. It's totally reasonable for you to just have a clipboard and start recording people's, even if not their names, then, their, particular demographics that we want to collect, right? City of Austin will always come back and ask you for information about the people that you're serving. It's just a function of, the organization that's distributing the funds, basically. But we want to be sure that what we say here about the metrics that we are using to evaluate our project and how we're going to collect it is exactly what we're going to do. Because if we are awarded this funding and we can't execute what it is that we said we are going to do, then we're not being good stewards of the funds. Second question, how would you define success for this project? That's based on you, right? This is based on you, your organization, your mission, your strategic plan, your project objectives, etc. So if you simply just want to raise awareness, or if you want to measure success based on, meals distributed, or plots of land that are sown for seeds, or number of vegetables that are sold, or whatever it is that you want to do with your project, make sure that you are very clear here. This is where you get to shine in terms of explaining to the city why your project will be successful with the funding that they're going to give you. Which brings us to the next question, which is funding. Here's where you give your very specific request for the amount of funding that you're looking for. The maximum is $3,000. And then you provide a detailed budget on how you're actually going to be spending these funds. I do not recommend just saying $3,000 meals. I recommend if it's, for example, you're just spending $3,000 on hot meals, break out every individual cost that goes into those $3,000. I mean, I'm talking like gloves, hairnets, seasoning, pans, tin foil, plates, chicken, fish, vegetables, etc. Have a very clear and concise breakdown of everything that goes into your budget, because that's going to show whoever is evaluating your grant application that you have put thought and care into understanding where this money is going to go. If you have more than just supply costs that are going to this budget, for example, you've got mileage or volunteer stipends or staff time that's going into it, then make sure to break that down as well. So it's, if you've got, let's say, $2,000 is going to go to food. You break those costs out individually. You've got $500 that's going to go to mileage. Break the mileage cost down per mile. The IRS mileage rate right now for reimbursement is 62 cents per mile. So figure out how many miles will go into that particular mileage reimbursement number, right? And then if you've got an additional $500 that's going to go towards a volunteer stipend or buying a tent or an umbrella or a table or something like that, make sure that this is a very detailed description of how you're going to be spending this money, because you will, once you receive these funds, have to report back on how it's spent. At the end of this grant application, you're going to be acknowledging the next steps, which is that if you are selected for the grant, your organization will have to register as a vendor with the City of Austin. Again, Austin Mutual Aid can help you do that. We can walk you through those steps. You can email me, kelsey@austinmutualaid.org, and I can help you with that process. And also, you acknowledge that if and when you're selected for the grant, that you will be responsible for reporting outcomes of the funding to the City of Austin's Office of Sustainability. Once you receive the grant, the Office of Sustainability will, of course, send you a contract to sign, which says that you agree to receive this money in exchange for giving them these certain reporting requirements, and the Office of Sustainability will most likely let you know exactly what that looks like based off of your grant application. So you're basically going to have a list or a report of the metrics that you've said that you're going to collect, what your rate of success is, how you spent your money, that kind of thing. If you have questions about that, email me, Kelsey@Austin Mutual Aid, and we can set you up with some simple grant reporting and budget tracking tools to help your organization with this. Once you're done with that, there's an opportunity to provide additional comments, 1 to 5 sentences. If you choose to do this, I would use this to differentiate yourself from other applicants. So if there is a very strong anecdote that supports the work you do in the community, then I will leave it here. If there is something that you have not been able to include in your project proposal or the history of your organization that you think would set you apart, absolutely put it in here. Again, only 1 to 5 sentences. Brevity is key in an application like this. And then you just submit your form. So if you have any questions, please email me, Kelsey@austinmutualaid.org. Again, this application is due Friday, July 22nd at 11:59 p.m. And let us know. Austin Mutual Aid is absolutely here to help you.